It's just that extra something that anime provides, and it doesn't go, oops, there's the whole container that happens when you watch something like Food Wars.
I think I watched 2 episodes and I was like, what am I doing here? I can't watch it without my headphones on. I was like, what?
Exactly.
I just want to watch something that I can watch like in the living room with. Hi, hello, this is Jules the Human here, and welcome to the Jules the Anime Hour. I'm one of your hosts, Jules the Human, and every week we go out into the world and watch a little bit of anime, and then we come back here and talk about it. And today we are talking about Bartender, Glass of God, for the very first time. This is the first time that we're talking about it, episode 1 through 4. Hope you watched it, because we're going to be chatting and giving you our thoughts about the anime. And we have so much more anime to get to, because this show is just plowing through them. We watch a couple of episodes, usually the first arc, about 12 episodes, and then we move on to anime that is picked by you, someone in the community, or by one of us, and we watch it. We tell you the good, the bad, and then we rate it over here on our board. We have a very top-heavy board for season 2, but that's good. We're watching some really good anime. So if you like an anime, put into the chest for us to view in future episodes a $5 super chat on YouTube, or 500 bits on Twitch is how you would do that. I don't go on these anime journeys alone. I go with my co-host, Matt Galley. Matt, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing really good, especially now that our Southern California heat wave is over. Oh my God.
Is it finally done?
I thought we were going to just melt away into nothingness. It was getting bad, but I'm doing really good. I'm excited to talk about this show, Bartender, Glass of God, specifically, because not only, was it just exciting, new, different type of anime to get into for us, but also being, a bartender myself, I just have a lot of closeness to the subject matter for sure.
Claire says, nicely done, Matt. Glad we didn't burn you. Num. So you haven't seen this anime, right? It just came out not too long ago. When I was looking at it, there is another Bartender anime that's not Glass of God. It's just Bartender. It was made a long time ago. I don't know if they have any association. I didn't look too far into it because I didn't want to get spoiled or anything. But this one came out this year, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
April.
Came out, yeah, like really soon, a little while ago. So this is fairly new anime that came out 2024. So we can clock it here. And yeah, I do have some thoughts, but let's get into the episode. So episode 1, A Gentle Perch. What happens in episode 1?
The Hotel Cardinal plans to open an authentic counter-style bar alongside its lounge. The business planning division is tasked with finding a bartender to run it, and they are having difficulty finding an applicant that are up to the standards imposed. The chairman of the hotel demands that they find someone who can make the quote-unquote glass of God, and Yukari and Miwa of the business planning division begin a bar crawl in an attempt to find a bartender that would work out. Stumbling across someone at the park that they would meet later again that night while debriefing, discovering that he's also a bartender, but seeming a little too silly and goofy for their taste. The next day, Miwa and Yukari make a stop at Eden Hall, only to discover their acquaintance, Sasakura, is the bartender here, and he impresses the girls with his cocktail-making skills and his attention to incredibly small details, making them convinced that he is the bartender that they are looking for.
Yippee. He's the guy. I love this guy. So I do want to talk about the anime, but then I also want to ask like certain things, because you are a bartender. I've never been a bartender, been in many bars, had a lot of drinks, never been behind on the other side of the counter. But to start with this anime, it gave me a lot of really chill vibes. We get the really cute intro.
I really like the intro, the
song,
the OP, the opening.
Yeah,
really enjoyable. It's just it definitely, like, it's not only like a cool song and a good intro, but I just like how it introduces little flair into it that makes it like, a little bartender, like, with the glass, the sound of the ice dropping into the glass and sound like that. Like, it's just, another thing where like those small attentions to detail just kind of like leave a lasting impression, and that's
And
something that like is carried into the concepts of the show itself.
that's definitely what I was going to say, is that this show has a lot of attention to detail, in so that, if you are a bartender, it is very like, oh, like calling out a thing, like that is what it's called. Or a lot of stuff I do want to ask is like, how
Mhm.
true is it?
I mean,
Because I don't know
I
anything.
had a coworker talk about point this show in my direction when it originally came out. Never watched it, but I mentioned it to him that we're finally getting into it. And then I also was watching it with my partner, and both of them, one of the first things that they pointed out was just like, wow, I love how like every single bottle is like an actual brand.
True.
I see Tanqueray, I see Hendrix,
Smirnoff.
I see Smirnoff, I see Glenlivet, I see all of these different brands of bottles. And those are all actual like real world brands. And that was like one of the first things that two other people, one being somebody that works in bars and one being somebody that doesn't, that was the first thing both of them pointed out to me.
Why do you think that anime for so long just never did that? Because we always get the
Something that it
Starbucks or
requires a lot of attention to detail and forethought, and then it is also a continuity thing where if you're really going to put every single one of those bottles on the shelf, they better damn well be in the same spot every time they're in the shot. Otherwise you're breaking continuity and people are like getting pulled out of the immersiveness of that environment, because we get all of these animes with all of these super fantastical locations and stuff, and they put so much attention and emphasis on that, on the setting, right? We can get the setting is the character, and in this show each bar location we're at is its own character. We come to Eden Hall. Eden Hall is a character. The little bar that they're at with that has the chef working behind it, that's kind of like a little stop. I'm forgetting the proper word for it, but it's more like a diner vibe. We get later on, there's the music bar when they're doing the little the when they're looking for a bartender and they go out on the bar crawl, there's like a shot of like a nightclub-ish bar. A bar is a setting, it's a place, it's a character, and it's a big part of what's think all the way back to SpongeBob for many people. The classic line, food, water, atmosphere. Like that's what one of the biggest things this show has going for it, is that atmosphere that it's setting with each environment.
I agree. A lot of the places made sense as well. Like when you see that little bar stop that they frequent a little bit, there was standing room for people to stand and just eat while they're on the go or whatever. And Eden Hall has this other sort of luxurious vibe to it. And I definitely felt like each new location we saw really felt like a new spot. And this is the place that you're talking about, where they frequent quite a bit, and they just can stand, and it all makes sense. It makes sense in what it's trying to go for. Claire says, now that you finished your drink, what would you like to have next? But my question was like, why don't other anime, because we've seen shows where they spoof on Starbucks. We had one earlier in the season where they spoofed on Subway as well. Like, why don't they just
Okay.
say Starbucks and Subway, where this show just is just like, yeah, these are all the ones that you would drink, and this is the same name. This is most likely the right bottle that it comes in. But is it like, did they pay to have those names in there as where the other places couldn't?
I think with in this case, it's just that they're using those brands to help draw and ground those environments in terms of the world building. Whereas in other shows, we get world building through like the more fantastical things. So here, it's like, since it's such a grounded setting, we need more grounded things. So in a bar where this is going to be the setting most of the time, what's something that's going to ground everything? The products that they're using, we need to be using the actual things that actual bartenders use. Otherwise it's just going to come off as kind of silly. I feel like if this is going to be like where we're getting like the drama out of the show, the bottles themselves become characters, the cocktails, the drinks, they are characters, so they need that attention. Whereas in other shows, it's just like, who cares? It's just a cola. We're using a soda as a stand-in for a real world product. but we're not really, we
We're
don't
not
really care
making
about.
anything about it.
Exactly. We don't really care about, it's not, if this was an actual Coke, it's not going to give or take anything away from the show. But as we go forward into this show, and especially in episode 4, as we'll get to, they really emphasize how like something. Oh, I mean, even as early in the first episode, one of the lines, being one small change to the recipe could be the difference between serving medicine and poison.
And poison, yeah.
And as simple as down to using a different vodka or a different brand of like a vermouth or something like that. All of these things that they're pulling down and showing as the characters, the bartenders are making their drinks. If you just change one of those things, they're making something completely different. It could be subtle, but it's still different regardless. As even if you're using a different vodka, oh, this one's filtered 8 times, this one's filtered 10 times. They're both vodka, but there's a difference.
It matters, yeah. But Matt, did you know that cold beer can be amazing? But do you know the best temperature to enjoy a good brew? When beer gets too cold, the proteins solidify and cloud the beer, and it doesn't form a good head. It does vary by season, brand, and personal taste, but most beers are not recommended to be served at lower than 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
And that's why we run our keg room at 55 degrees.
Whoa, fucking got him. There was a lot of that in this show, but later on another episode. So we get a lot of chill vibes. It feels a lot like a slice of life. Would you agree? I guess the first episode,
yeah, like a slice of life. It's not really a drama. It's just about like these characters and yeah, it's not really goal driven. Like, of course, there's the goal of like we want to open this bar in this hotel, but really like that quickly subsides as like right away we found the guy. Here's an offer, and he's just like no.
Yeah, and
so now it becomes like how do we get him, and then it's slowly starts to the I feel like very quickly we see this barrier of the planning division and Sasakura as like, just acquaintances. Like the walls begin to come down and friendships begin to just be made, so to speak. For better or worse.
Yeah, so the bartender test for Hotel Cardinal is happening. None of those bartenders are good, and we need a bartender that can make the glass of God. And so that we go on to it like a drinking montage, sort of trying to find a bar, trying to find different bartenders. We meet Sasakura, as we said before, who we meet him first in the park, who is very forgetful. He's reading a bar book as well, and he ends up, how do they find him again? He just is, what was it?
He was
at this
park.
Yeah, well, he was at the park, but then they find him here at this other place.
Correct.
And they're like, oh my god, it's you, and I didn't return your book and stuff. He ends up making her a highball. One of the girls, I don't remember the girl's name because they're just kind of there. I don't remember
Yukari and Miwa. Yukari is the redhead and Miwa is the blonde.
Okay. Not a big fan of them too, but I can see
they're just kind of stand-ins,
Yeah.
I mean, not stand-ins, but like they are like not being characterized entirely to be very likable. They are just kind of like these people that we know what a task is that needs to get done. Again, they need to open the bar, and these are just two people where it's like, all right, go find us somebody. So they're just kind of like trying to do their job, and that's all we really get from them, other than they are a little I'm already forgetting again. Miwa and Yukari. Yukari is like, oh my god, I love seeing a hardworking man use his hands.
It's just really silly.
Like,
yeah, like I don't I mean, later on I do get more sort of attached to them, but like in this first episode I'm just kind of like, okay, these girls are fine.
Yeah.
Claire said that chugging alcohol isn't good for you, but sometimes it's necessary. The cocktail Nikolashka is an example of this. It uses cognac, lemon, coffee, and sugar. But first, you put the lemon, coffee, and sugar in your mouth. Then you take a big swig of cognac. Is that true?
That's a new one for me.
That's pretty cool. Put that one into your rotation.
There's definitely some drinks that even this show has now like introduced me to, where I'm just like, I didn't know about that before.
Very cool. So we're immediately enamored by this Sasakura behind the bar because he you know,
He
pays
like
attention to a lot
basically
of
like
details.
yeah, attention to detail, but like basically also like there's all of these like red flags that came up early in the episode, and he like shows to completely like surpass expectations on those fronts. Like
Mhm.
they asked for a specific drink to be made and it took too long early on, and this guy just offers a customer to make it, and he makes it in like
Super
2 or 3
fast.
times as fast in like 1/3 of the time it took the other guy. She orders a cocktail, one of the first a martini, and the first guy wanted to make a martini, but then the advisor was like, you don't even know if I've eaten yet. It's a very strong drink. Why is that what you would offer initially?
Mhm.
And he's like, actually, martini's very strong and it seems like you haven't eaten, so how about I serve you something a little bit lighter? So all of these things, like, they're just like, wow, he just isn't that the thing? Isn't
Yeah.
that? And they're just like freaking out. But then we finally get to Miwa ordering her drink, and she's like, "Give me whatever you recommend." And so he makes her a highball, and she had just had a highball the last night, but it had gotten all diluted. So he makes a very delicious highball with a lot of care and forethought, and she's left stunned by the fact that like he basically thought about her drink 9 hours ago this morning.
And she sees God in that moment. I was completely sold on him when he started talking about the meaning of bartender, how there's only two professions where you shouldn't, uh, you should trust essentially, and that's being physicians, doctors, or your bartender. And bartender means gentle perch, a place where tenderness grows. So watching episode 1, I mean, you would probably continue watching it just because it is about bartending,
Sure.
but watching episode 1, I don't normally like slice of life anime, but it's just enough, and it's just like
I
it
think
has
like
that extra something enough for me to want to keep going.
it has the extra something that anime provides for me, where like I like trashy TV too. I like things that don't have a lot, and we like Bar Rescue. Used to watch a lot of Bar
Oh,
Rescue just because I love seeing that side of it. But this is like, an inverse to that, where it's like it's taking the concepts of like bar and bartending and keeping it grounded in anime. So you're getting that little extra flair of like that when she sees God and stuff like that. You're getting that
the
little extra
drink.
spice, the way like, yeah, anime foods always look good, so you get all the like all the attention that's put into these drinks. But it's just like it's just that extra something that anime provides, and it doesn't go, oops, there's the whole container that happens when you watch something like Food Wars.
That's what I was gonna say. It's a lot tamer, a lot tamer than Food Wars.
I wish
Um,
I could watch Food Wars, but I just can't.
I watched episode 1. I think I watched 2 episodes, and I was like, "What am I doing here? I can't watch it without my headphones on." I was like, "What?" I just
Exactly.
wanna watch something that I can watch, like, in the living room with if somebody overhears, it's
Exactly.
fine.
I can recommend this to people. Only 4 episodes in, I can say that like I can recommend this to people without like having to be like, but just with a disclaimer. I don't need to give like a disclaimer about the fact that it's anime. Like, and that's just I wish that I could say that about more shows that are more slice of life, but unfortunately, because when you get the shows that are slice of life, I feel like they try to overcompensate the fact that it's usually a slower pace and stuff like that, with all of these more like outrageous like moments or bits of, yeah.
Claire says, "I feel like Food Wars went way too heavy on the service early on, like they were afraid no one would stick around without it."
And I would like everything up until until it said food service, fan service. I
The
was sold
food
on Food
service.
Wars, but then it gets to those bits, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just
Yeah,
uncomfy now.
a little bit. Yeah. So I would recommend it as well. Like, I would keep watching. If I just watched episode 1, I was like, "What's this about?" Because it does feel like this could be like a TV show. And while I feel it might be boring as a TV show, it does have that anime flavor where I'm just watching this world and I'm building, and it is intriguing the way that Sasuke is talking. I really like him as a main character. We get a character that is very likable and not very knowledgeable about his craft, and I kind of want to see him explore his craft and show off his stuff and just be better. Episode 2, Old Pal, One for the Road. What happens in episode 2?
The planning division returned to Eden Hall in an attempt to recruit Sasakura, but the bar is closed. Sasakura is helping out at another bar, and a regular seats himself. This regular is unimpressed by Sasakura's drinks, and another employee informs him that this guy always comes in on the anniversary of the old owner's death and acts that way. Sasakura turns down the planning division as he just started at Eden Hall and says his fear of heights prevent him from working in a hotel. Sasakura invited the regular back to the bar and serves him a drink that strikes his nostalgia chords back to when the old owner started working there. A rainstorm brings a disgruntled guest into Eden Hall, with Sasakura managing to serve them the perfect drink and story to turn their night around and give them a new perspective moving forward in their career.
I really like this episode. So something else that they mentioned about him working at Eden Hall, and I guess the job of a bartender, not so much just mixing drinks, but the bartender gives their first impressions to new people in the country, which I don't really think about. I love this like sensationalized idea because it makes me care about it. It makes me on the level of
Puts it
them,
in
like
perspective.
the perspective of this anime, definitely, because you want to be the greatest, and in anime they put weight on different jobs or different things that a main character can do. Like he can do this, so like this is all it is. Like this is everything, and this is what's going to save everybody. Whereas they continue to just put out like, hey, this person that we know now is Sasakura, or we put Sasakura in, he's the one that gives the first impression of the country, of Japanese people, of helps people after their long day, gives people a reprieve from whatever they did that day, changes moods, influences their life, and all this stuff. So it's giving a lot of weight on the idea of a bartender, and I really like it. This was the chairman, right? The chairman guy, the
Yes.
owner of Hotel Cardinal.
Mm-hmm.
They don't say it, but we're supposed to know his face, and I knew it to begin with. But
I don't know if like I was just like sleeping through the first time they showed him in the first episode, but yeah, that was pointed out to me by Chloe,
yeah,
and
this guy.
she was telling me that was the guy, and I was like, I was like, I can see what you're going with there, but I think we're just meeting him. And when I was going back to grab the screenshots, I was like, oh nope, she was right. It was
Yeah,
already
so like
alluded to.
it's odd. They don't explain some stuff, and
Yeah.
they just expect you to remember it. It would just so happen I was like, is it him? And I
Which
was
is
like, yeah.
fine. Like, with a show like this and the subject matter that it is, like I feel like you expect the audience to kind of, be engaged with it on that level. But apparently I just had a brain fart.
So the chairman walks into the bar. He meets Sasakura, and all three drinks he tastes are awful. And he asks him to go. He finally says, "Hey, for this next drink, can you go next door to get me some sake instead?" And I'm like, "Fuck!" And I just Arthur fist for Sasakura.
Mhm.
And he wants to give it another shot. He invites him back, gives him an old pal, and man, I love this. Again, adding weight to what the bartender in the show can do. He brings back an old memory from the old pal drink, how he goes into how the drinks were made back then, how they weren't, chilled
The
at a certain
glasses weren't always
temperature.
chilled. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. The ice, you don't always have ice to work with.
I thought that was like so beautiful. Like there's nothing going on really on the screen, but I think it's a mix of Sasakura's voice actor and also just the way that the words are playing out. Like he's
And the music
explaining it really
too,
well. The
honestly.
music is
Music's
good.
really good.
But yeah, like it really adds weight to these little things that you're not thinking of. And it made me feel really sentimental because it's like I remember times in my life where I smelled a certain scent or I went back to like one certain spot and you're like, man, this is where this happened, or like, that smells like, my grandma's house or something. And it's like you felt it in this moment because he's like, oh man, like this is this is what happened in the past. And then they show the photo of him with the owner and most likely his wife on their wedding day. Like there's so much behind the drink, and I love it. I love the explanation of it and them just going through his emotions and just being like,
Every drink has a story.
true. I want to ask you some bartender stuff at the end, so I really want to get through this. He says, if you ever get into trouble, give him a call. And then we get the newcomer to Eden Hall, and she's a little disgruntled, a little bit. She says a bartending job is a job for assholes. She's complaining about people being assholes.
I could tell right away. I was like, oh, she's projecting.
Definitely.
Like
and I like this.
She just sees she is all like she got caught out by the rain. She's on her way home from work. Like she is just taking it out on somebody, and that is like, you know, like I'm not saying she's right to do that, but it's sometimes like he says, he says later on, I see it that you chose to rely on me in one of your weaker moments or in your time of need, whatever it was that he said.
And it's like borderline, well, not borderline, like it's not obnoxiously nice. Sasakura says some stuff where it could toe the line of being like, okay, guy, this is fake. You're being fake nice. Like you're trying to spin everything in a positive way, and I don't believe you. It seems very believable for Sasakura to be the way he is. He's like, I don't see it as you giving me all this bad from your day. I see it as you trusted me here in this moment to ease you in some way and to take your load away from you physically or mentally. And I'm here for that. And I'm here. And she still doesn't really believe him. She's just like, you're being fake, kind of like, no, like this is your job as customer service. But then he makes her a cocktail called the Bull Shot, and it's like a soup. I really wanted to try this one. Have you heard about this one before?
I hadn't heard about it before, the Bull Shot, but like but right away, like right when he's like, all right, and I'm gonna make something for you, and he stepped away, I was like basically jumping up from my chair, and I was like naming all the different hot drinks that I know. I was like, oh, he's gonna make a hot toddy, or he's gonna make an Irish coffee, or he's gonna make and I was just like jumping through these like hot drink concepts, and I was like, wait, that's like, and then he came back with the pot, and I was like, it's hot water. See, he's gonna make a hot drink, and then he made the soup, and then I was like, that's so freaking smart. Because it's just like, you know, I mean, by definition, cocktails are like, you know, 3 ingredients of something. You have a base liquor, something to build off of it, a citrus, and then like usually a third ingredient, a sour or sorry, not a sour, like a sweetener or bitter, something like that. And just, you know, he used broth, vodka, and one other ingredient. I forget what it was. But I was just like, yeah, this is basically just a cocktail, even though it's like it's soup, but it's a cocktail. Like that's crazy.
I really wanted to try it.
That also, to me, even jumps in 2 episodes ahead when they start getting into this the concept of breaking your preconceptions of what drink should be and stuff like that. Where that, for me, the Bull Shot was a moment of breaking preconceptions of what drink should be. Could be.
I really liked it. It was really cool. We find out that what's her name? I don't know her name. One of the girls that we've been following is
Miwa, the blonde.
Miwa is the granddaughter of the chairman. So they just kind of did it nonchalantly, and it's like, does the other girl know this too? Like, does she not know this? Is this new information? But
and then he tries to make a joke that he's like married to her, and I was just like,
yeah, he was like,
that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's like, we're lovers.
Yeah,
you just call your granddaughter your lover, even if it was a joke. It's just whatever,
that's
man.
Weird,
you
dog. So we also see this moment at the end with the lady that was at the bar, where one of the people that she works with, she changes her ideas about her job, about how she's actually helping people. Sasakura does say like she's possibly like a lawyer that helps people really, and that the bullshot is a mystery book, in fact, about a lawyer that ends up having a tender heart after a tough exterior.
A
So
lawyer with a heart of gold.
it was really nice. I really liked it. It's it's not too much for me because I'm not a big fan of
It's
slice of
crazy
life.
that he was able to give her that bullshot that coincided with that story off the back of the whole one for the road story that he also gave her.
One for, bro. Yes. Would it be the heart when she's like, would it be wrong to ask for another one for the road? And it's like, yeah, man, let's just do it. Let's just drink. Let's keep going. Love it. Love it. It's not too much for me. It's not enough, or it's not too much slice of life. It's just enough humanity and emotion. And I could see Sasakura just serve different drinks every time. Like,
And it's
I'm
just
just
like,
down.
and it's just like that whole exactly what I was saying earlier. The whole concept of every drink has a story, and they're sharing like he's like sharing stories of the drinks with people or connecting their stories to it, and it's also these small stories that are revolving around these drinks is the centerpiece too. It's just like all just feels like circles and circles and circles.
So good.
It's all really good, and it all connects into each other, and it feels like we're like slowly building this small cast of characters that are just gonna like kind of like all of their stories are gonna keep like weaving and crossing over each other as we move forward, and I'm on board for that.
Definitely. Episode 3, The Perfect Taste. What happens in episode 3?
Miwa leaves work early to attend an event with her grandfather, the chairman, showcasing award-winning bartender Mr. Perfect. The chairman tells Mr. Perfect about Sasakura, and at Eden Hall, a guest comes in that Sasakura identifies as another bartender, telling them that she just quit her job before leaving in tears. Mr. Perfect arrives after, finding himself surprised by, but not impressed by Sasakura. The bartender asks Sasakura for advice after running into him, and he obliges with some hard truths. The chairman gets Mr. Perfect and Sasakura into a drink-making competition, with Mr. Perfect's drink coming out as the technical winner, but Miwa, as the judge, insists upon Sasakura's attention to detail and desire to please the customer as something one of a kind.
All right. So Kazuhara Raichi is the bartender at the rival hotel high-end bar named Mr. Perfect. And I love that we finally have a foil for Sasakura here, and I really like where this story is going. So the chairman and his granddaughter Miwa meet Mr. Perfect. He's been bartending for 8 years at that place, I think they said. We get the redhead girl that comes in, says she quit her job, immediately clocks that she's a bartender as well, and Mr. Perfect shows up at the bar. The gin fizz, I wanted to ask, is the gin fizz something to test all bartending skills? Because apparently it is.
It's I thought it was a perfect parallel how the chairman drew the kanji character for
That was very
eternity,
cool.
and drew the parallel that like this character requires every single brushstroke of kanji, so the gin fizz requires all the fundamentals of bartending. And it's true, like they also get into it later that like Western and Eastern drink making traditions can be different from each other, and so there's that concept at play too, where they're going to be constantly referring to like more Japanese traditions in drink making, where at least for me especially, I'm familiar with like Southern California techniques in drink making, and I've only traveled outside of California to a few places, Wisconsin and Illinois being two of them. And both places I tried drinks that I make out there, and they're prepared completely differly, and that's totally okay.
Can you pour a whiskey shot? And that's what we got in Texas.
The show like continues to dive into that, but I definitely like I really like the whole, like you were saying, the setup of the foil character of Mr. Perfect, as well as just, in bartending, in a bar culture, you have these different like archetypes of bartenders, so to speak. And obviously, you could think of it more of a complex Venn diagram, but there are definitely ways that people lean more into. And whereas Sasakura is definitely leaning into the being personable and connecting to the customer on the other side of the bar top. Mr. Perfect is definitely more of the machine, the type of person that is going to, pump out something that, like, identical products. You'll catch him on a Monday or on a Friday night, any day of the week, any time of the day, and he's going to give you the exactly same consistent thing that he always produces.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that bartenders themselves are constantly reflecting on and trying to become more versatile and better in different ways.
I likened it, and I wrote it down here to something that I know, something like Apple versus Android, sort of, where Apple is making the clean cut thing that will go for the masses, that everybody's like, okay, these things a phone can do, this is what will apply to most people, and this is what people will use it for, better camera, whatever it is. And this is the Mr. Perfect in this situation, where Apple is making the same sort of stuff every single time with little iterations of it. And where now that I have an Android phone, I know, and mine fucking flips, bro. Why does mine flip? I got Sonic on there. Hold on, gotta show you that Sonic boy. What's up?
Dang, gotta go
s-
fast.
So like, and this is like for more like Sasakura, where it's like this meets my needs and I love it, but I know everybody won't love it. And this is sort of they make different things, folding, huge, whatever, but they're all super unique and they are made for a certain niche. And I thought that was a pretty good analogy, where I was like, oh, I can latch it onto something where, the two different things, they're just different. One isn't really better than the other. There could be one better for you, but it's just two different ways of doing it. And I really like that.
Which they also get into that concept of, personal taste is always going to come into account, but consistency is something that, can't be traded for anything.
I really like the things that they don't say, the things that they do, where they mentioned, the redheaded girl, Kamakami Coco, I think is her name. I wrote it down kind of. But where she was like, how did you know that she was a bartender? Well, first thing that she said was like, she asked about the hours, like, are you open, whatever. And then when that's how you know she's a bartender. And then when Mr. Perfect comes in, right as he comes in, he's like, hey, or else he says something to the same extent, like, are you still open? Asking about the hours too. And I was like, that's great. Love it. They didn't have to mention it. It's just like, I was paying attention.
It's something that's very true. Very true. People that just kind of wander in and don't ask anything, even though the door is unlocked. It's just kind of like, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Then I have to tell them, oh, actually, sorry, we've already done, whatever it is, but it's fine.
You're sweeping and
exactly.
I
Doors
really
open for deliveries, actually.
Yeah, you got any drinks for me, bro? I really love this tense feel. This is the first time that it is very tense when no fighting's happening. There's nobody throwing people through the wall or anything, but it felt really tense for them to be like, he's judging him and they're sort of talking about different things, and it's like, ooh, like this is like something's here, and I love
the
it.
whole concept of, like, oh, it's a little sweet. This, you put rum in this, and then they keep going on, and then it's like, actually, it's not rum, and then he's just kind of like,
yeah.
And then the chairman's like, oh, you pulled one over on Mr. Perfect, and then
and then he says your drinks suck anyway.
Yeah, actually, I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
I'm not having fun. I'm not paying for this.
Yeah, I'm out. Actually, yeah, they don't really pay for their drinks. We've seen money once in this anime.
Uh,
But he says his drink is far from perfect, and he leaves. We get some harsh words from Sasakura to Kami Coco, the red-haired bartender here. And we get the whole battle. The chairman wants Sasakura and Mr. Perfect to make the same drink. If Mr. Perfect loses, he says he will retire. He'll hang up his apron and just never make drinks again. He put so much thought into his drinks, Sasakura, and it was just so good. Mr. Perfect doesn't think he's a good bartender. He thinks he's young. He thinks he's amateur. If he tries to please every customer, he will lose the craft of bartending perfect drinks. And in that moment afterwards, we see Sasakura being a little harsh, like he was actually kind of hurt by not making a technically good drink. And it was like the first break. I love that we're seeing this side now. Like we're seeing a different side where we've seen him calm, cool, collected a lot of the time while forgetful a little bit. We see him sort of break. He's like, wait, no, like I do make good drinks. And then this whole thing sort of flips it. Like, I love it. I love it.
It's nice to see that, you know, we have a protagonist where even though, like, again, we've already identified that, like, this is the guy that they want, he still has, like, these personal battles and obstacles that he has to overcome himself. And then you also get, like, throw in that, like, the show's not really called, you know, Sasakura Glass of God. It's called Bartender Glass of God. So then you get, like you were saying, Kawakami and like her whole ordeal that she's going through, and then to parallel like Mr. Perfect, you have Sasakura, who's like kind of being a little like, you know, he's if not like just comforting, he's giving her advice, but it's coming across as like cold and harsh. But sometimes that's the things that you need to hear.
Yeah, which is
You
like
need somebody to be honest with you.
yeah, and especially in that field where there's a ton of bartenders, most likely in the city. And he's like, if this is what's going to break you, then maybe you don't deserve to be and do the bartending business. Because if this one little thing about you not getting your drink exactly right is going to break you, you don't have the resolve. And I'm telling you now, if this is it, then leave because it's only going to get worse. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I had one of those moments.
That's what it comes across as for sure.
Definitely.
Even though she is very non-receptive to it initially.
Yeah, I definitely felt that one, especially going to music school and being a music performer. It's like you got to push and you got to keep going. And
if somebody telling you you're not hitting the right note is what's going to break you, then how are you ever going to get better if you don't know you're wrong in the first place?
And it's like, yeah, you're right. And yeah, it was very cool.
Got to learn how to take criticism. For sure. That's yeah, that was one of the hardest things I had to learn how to do too. Not even by any stretch of the imagination. But there's a point where like you take so much and you might have this idea that like, you know, no, everything I do is right, but there's a certain point where you just realize there's like Mr. Perfect says, if you now realize how green you are, you may leave. It's like, now go learn. Now that you know, go accept it and go get better.
And it feels good because once you learn that, it just gets so much easier. Life gets so much easier because it's like you can accept that you can be wrong and you can accept help. And that's the best thing to grow.
Exactly.
We got to go in episode 4, a bar's secret ingredient, the face of a martini. What happens in episode 4?
With the hotel's French chef leaving, the replacement is looking to be pricey due to their demands for 100% imported ingredients. Kamishima is tasked with convincing the new chef to accept compromises in order to not gouge themselves. Going to Eden Hall, Kamishima is convinced that Sasakura's drinks would be able to do the trick. Sasakura, receiving a boost of inspiration from the chef at the usual spot, the business planning division proceeds to bring the new chef to a bunch of restaurants before stopping at Eden Hall. Initially repulsed by the idea that he was tricked, the chef becomes receptive to the idea after the showing by Sasakura, his take on authenticity and relation directly to the chef. Kamishima is left stunned by Sasakura, now convinced he must bring him to the hotel. Miwa, Kyoko, and Sasakura all go out to Sasakura's old place of work for martinis, learning about what it means to express your creativity through drinks while Sasakura reminisces on his past.
Ooh, and then we see Mr. Perfect and
the
chairman still
up
talking
to something.
Up to some no good business here. I kind of want to not skip over, but like talk about the chef portion broadly, because it is this is not what I expected from an episode. This is really cool that they came up with a fairly unique idea to use the gifts of the main character to this hotel's advantage. And I really like the way they went about it. Like they proposed in the very beginning this obstacle that has to get through, and I'm like, what does that have to
why
do
do we
with
care about that?
It was like, why do we just see a chef? Are we going to get into food stuff? And then it goes into how he wants to use Sasakura's abilities to sway him a little bit. And it's
When he
just
said that, it gives them an emotional boost. I just think of like Monster Hunter or, Final Fantasy 14, just like they chug potions, cocktails made by him, and then just zing, and they get like a stat boost, and there's like blue shooting up from the ground around them.
So they play a game of guess that drink. What's the specific ingredient in this? And he drank mirin and he got it wrong. They tell a story. Sasakura tells a story about not losing yourself to preconceptions, which is a really like, it feels like I mean, it doesn't feel like a Sesame Street episode or something where they're like, hey, now we're going to talk about this serious thing about life. And it's like, oh, come on. It weaves it into the story so well, and it tells the characters, not the audience. And it helps you in the palate when you're accepting the information, because it's not directly at you, the watcher. You are just hearing the characters, but it helps me like understand what they're meaning, and then big brained like, oh, this is really cool in my whole life, in the world, and things like that. So they're doing this really well. They're doing this whole bartending alliteration or to real life, which is really dope. We go to Kamakami has a martini with no face, and I don't know what that means. Is that a real thing? Is that real verbiage where this drink has no face?
I've never had somebody tell me my martinis don't have a face, but after the way, but with the way the show presents it, it's just like I totally understand what the show's expressing, and that giving the face in the martini is just giving whatever combination of ingredients that you're using, bringing out the best of those ingredients. So with certain like even down to the fact that they talk about, that we're using gin and dry vermouth, but in a lot of Western countries they typically use vodka instead of gin, and that's very true. Where in the States you order a martini, most people are going to expect vodka, and even more and more as time moves forward, more people just prefer it to be shaken as to stirred. But traditionally, it's supposed to be made with gin and it's supposed to be stirred. So they go into that whole concept where it's like, depending on where you're at, even it's going to be different. But they show off, just all of those. I love the shot, but I didn't grab it, of just all of the different bottles and ingredients that surrounded the martini glass, because it's very true. It's just you can have, because it's such a stripped down, for all intensive, for lack of a better term, it's a very stripped down recipe. It's just the base and a vermouth, and depending on where you're at, some people just say no vermouth, and that's just chilled vodka or gin, but they still think
hell yeah,
martini.
Give me one of those.
Anyways, yeah, it's like, it's exactly that. If you're serving just some chilled vodka and giving it to somebody, telling them it's a martini, I could imagine somebody saying, "Oh, this has no face." If you're making, dirty martinis, you still want to have the proper balance of your gin or vodka to your vermouth to your olive juice. Because if you, I really love how when she, I'm forgetting her name, when Kawakami orders her martini from Sasakura, she's like, I want a 3-to-1. Like, she doesn't order a martini, she's directing him to make a martini with a recipe. So it's like even down to stuff like that, where it's just like that's exactly what it's trying to mean. So in her case, she's giving him the same exact ratio that she's using, but for some reason his is coming out better. And it could be all the way down to just the fact that like he might be stirring with that the better ice that doesn't melt as fast, so it's chilling the drink, but it's not diluting the drink as quickly. Because if you're using small ice to stir a drink, all those smaller ice cubes are melting into that drink faster than if you're using one large piece of ice that's been hardened by cooling it over a larger amount of time.
In that instance, just add more alcohol. I say. I never had a martini because I didn't like olives. Can I get a martini without olives? Without a little olive in it?
Yes, lemon.
Okay.
Martini with lemon twist, no olive. That's like what the third when they go out for drinks and stuff. That's what she made the martinis, and then she did a little bit of she did like a lemon or a lime, like just it looked like the butt of a lime or lemon cut off, and then she like hollowed it out and then pressed it to give it like suction, and then pressed it to the bottom of the glass. That way it doesn't float.
I love that.
Normally when you do a twist or something, it gets in the way of somebody drinking it. So that's something that I recently discovered is when I do my twists now, you take like the peel of a lemon or a lime and you cut it diagonally. And that way the diagonal lets you kind of like put it on the rim of the glass as the glass like rounds out. So you can squeeze it over the top, give it that zest, and then put it right there at the top of the glass. That way it's not in their way when they're trying to drink it. And that's something that I do now recently. So when I serve my drinks, like my martinis, like that's how I'm giving my martini its finishing touches, usually with something like that instead of olives.
I would have that over that. Yeah, I've never had a martini because I just didn't like olives. But they
it's a very strong drink, like they keep talking about. Don't have it on an empty stomach.
Oh, okay. Thanks. No, I only go to drink. No food, good. I'm getting drunk.
Give me the bucket of frozen margarita, please.
Yeah, thank you. They visit Hell's Arms, which is the bar that he knows the owner of. Sasakura knows Uehara, who he sort of trained with a little bit. And one question here, where all of them were talking at the bar, they're all just vibing, and they all have a card with their name and all that stuff. Do all bartenders have a card?
Oh shit! I need to get a printed card from.
That's what I was saying. I was like, is this a thing? I didn't know this was a thing. Do all bartenders have a card? You got to get one. Just your name and then bartender. Maybe your specialty, special drink. Maybe. Claire says, "Can you spell whiskey correctly?" Actually, whiskey and whiskey with an E are both correct spellings. I didn't know that. In England, I hear that they spell differently depending on what kind of whiskey it is. Bourbon has a key and Scotch has none.
What do you mean by key?
The key, Key.
Oh.
Yeah, bourbon is whenever you say whiskey, bourbon with a EY. But then, like, what if you're just saying it? Can I have a whiskey?
Well, there's more than just bourbon and Scotch, though. There's also like there's rye, there's Canadian, there's anything that like they each have their own thingies. But that's probably why England both spellings are correct, because you can't make bourbon outside of America because it requires American oak whiskey barrels to make bourbon. So all bourbon's usually American.
I do like bourbon.
All Scotch is Scottish. You can't make Scotch outside of Scotland. It's illegal.
What?
Yep.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
That's why when she mentioned, like, she's like, oh, it's Scotch, so he might be making a Highland something, because Scotch is the Highlands. So if it's from Scotch, if it's Scotch drink and it's using Highland, it's referencing that Scotland.
Oh. I learned something new today.
Hmm.
The face of a drink is the character of the bartender. Boiled down, they said it in a whole lot of words, but that's basically what it kind of is. And the ingredients as characters as well. They talked about the cocktail award competition. The bartender at the Hell's Arms was saying they tested their metal there, or were going to test their metal, and we get a flashback to Sasakura and Yuihara. A very different kind of Sasakura there, and he was saying specifically that he wants to be the person that can make the glass of God. So he knows about it, which he's never mentioned it before. And then we also get the chairman still drinking with Mr. Perfect. So this anime has satiated enough for me and gave me a lot of insight into something that I don't know about, but still made it interesting enough for me to care about the characters caring about the things that matter. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, that makes sense. I care that the characters care
yeah.
about the thing, and that's all I'm looking for. I want somebody that's invested in their thing. It doesn't matter if I don't know anything about it. They did enough explaining, and they related it to certain things, or they made it palatable enough for me to care that these characters want something, or want to get better, or make really good drinks, or whatever. I really liked it, and I'm also intrigued by Sasakura's character and what's going to happen if he's going to be the bartender at Hotel Cardinal.
Yeah, I want to see that door get unsealed.
Definitely. Maybe you should go. Can you make the glass of God? Will I face when I take a drink from you?
I don't know, man. All I know is that I will say that it's that like as so far through my bartending like career, I have been enjoying it a lot, but I do find that this has given me a very refreshing take and a like reinvigoration as to like, it is an entire world, it is an entire culture that you do kind of have to experience and find and learn, and it's not like like many people say, because it's just so ingrained, especially as the suburbs grow bigger. After graduation in a lot of American suburbs, there's not much to do other than go to house parties, and my introduction to like all those bottles on those shelves were just by taking them as shots and stuff, and that was always a culture that was very not enjoyable. But cocktail bartending culture, bar culture, and cocktails are all about, like he said, I want the person on the other side of the bar for me to enjoy the perfect drink made for them. And I feel like that's such a poignant like just thing that I'm sure all bartenders at some point felt, if not have lost it, due to burnout in service industry, because it's not something that's easy to do when you combine it with having to deal with people like that end of it. So this show definitely like reinvigorates something on that level for me, where it just reminds me uh how it's a journey, it's not a destination. 100%.
It is a journey. I really like it. I definitely want to continue. One question though, what do you think is Sasakura's apprehension? Can you give us a prediction about what you think is his apprehension for being the bartender there at Hotel Cardinal? Like, why does he not? Because we know he's fine with heights because he was there in Paris for
Yeah,
one of his bars. But what's going to be the thing? Do you think?
just maybe it's the like Eden Hall is like on floor B1 of this hole in the wall place, and I don't know, it's like maybe he just doesn't want that glitz and glamour anymore. Maybe he wants to just be somewhere small where he could build those more personal connections with people and not be subject to the hoity-toityness of something that like Mr. Perfect and environments like that might necessitate out of him. Because maybe he doesn't want to be perfect. Maybe he just wants to be Sasakura.
That could be it.
Um,
Definitely.
I definitely could see that being it. With
I
how
think
airheaded he is.
sure. I think they might go like extra anime with it, where this is like I don't know, his we still don't know anything about his family really, right? Like this is I mean, it can't Eden Hall can't be like his dad's or something. I don't think. But like, I
I
think
don't
they're gonna
think
go.
you met like the owner of it or anything like that.
No, but it could be like, this is my family's bar that I wanted to come back here, get super the
Something more
bear with it.
sentimental.
Yeah, something where, but I do like that where you said like maybe he just doesn't want to do it. Maybe he just doesn't want to be that high end person and just wants to make his personal drinks. But then it did really phase him when he said that your drink wasn't good because it was too personalized and it wasn't this. So I think they're gonna go super anime with it, where it's just something outside the box. Where he had some backstory to it and why he doesn't want to do a high end, or why he wants to stick to something lower like Eden Hall or something. But either way, we're going to watch 4 more episodes of this anime. Watch episode 5 through 8. Yeah, 5 through 8. Next week, A Bartender, Glass of God. I'm really enjoying it, and I think Matt is too. So watch it along with us. Go out and watch episode 5 through 8. Come back here on Wednesday so you can talk about it, hear our thoughts. Matt, when you're not bartending or watching anime about bartending, where can they find you?
Right now for a while, probably just here, but you can follow me on my YouTube at Matt_Galley or on my socials at it's Matt_Galley. I've been a little bit on everything, you know. Football season just started, busy with work, busy with bartending.
Oh yeah,
Here
you
for
love
the
football.
podcast. Been doing stuff with my new recent partner, and we've been having a lot of
Ooh.
fun just doing stuff. So I'm just a busy boy. But follow me on my YouTube and you won't miss anything that I do when I'm able to do those things. Jules, when we're not here discussing the animes and the bartendings, where can the people find you?
Find me on Jules the Human on all social media at JULES the Human, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, on all the stuff. Yeah, I'm definitely not posting anything either. I'm just vibing. I've been working out, eating better, and
You're on day 31, right?
I'm in my training arc. Today's
Oh,
32. My leggies hurt a lot because it was leg and core day. But I am definitely working out and feeling better and most likely losing pounds. But you can also watch this anime on Spotify. Go to Spotify, just look up the Jules and Matt Anime Hour if you want to take it on the road, if you want to listen to us while you work out or in the car or something. Spotify, the Jules and Matt Anime Hour. We also have an Anime Hour YouTube channel for all the episodes. I just post them up over there. So if you just want to see that stuff, go over there, go subscribe. Get down and give me 20 maggot. I have never in my entire life, I have been obese. I have never been able to do a push-up. So that is my goal, my first goal, to do 1 push-up.
I believe
we're
you.
Gonna do it. I was planking. Anyways, next week, yeah. Next week, the Bartender, Glass of God, watch episode 5 through 8, and we'll be here. Hopefully you watch it and come talk to us. See you next time.
Bye.